You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey, we're back in the garage with Captain Picard and Mr. Spock, and this Facehugger looks like it's gonna come get me. So if it moves, you let me know in the comments below if the Facehugger moves. Anyways, hey, it's been a while. I was gonna do another one of these a lot sooner, but things are really getting busy at work. So it's amazing how you can go from 0 to 60 in the theme park industry, where nothing to do, just normal operations, and then boom, lot to do. So it feels really good to be back working and doing all these great things. I haven't come up for air in over 2 weeks, so it feels great. I got rid of the mask. I'm not wearing the mask anymore. The CDC, not the CDC, the WHO and the Los Angeles Health Department came out with this thing that even if you're fully vaccinated, you should wear a mask. Yeah, I'm not doing that. And I won't frequent any place that does. It's your right to say you have to wear a mask. It's my right to say I'm not going to spend any money here. So everybody just live their life. That's the thing I can't figure out about this whole pandemic is it quickly went from we're all in this together to I'm doing it this way, you will do it that way too. That's not how I operate. I've never operated that way. So if you were expecting anything else, you haven't been paying attention. But let's talk about some fun stuff. You know, it's always difficult to come up with, like, what are we going to talk about on the show, unless it's going to be just, hey, I watched a movie, here's a review. And I can certainly do that. I mean, I just watched the Rocketeer again, and such a great movie. Such an underrated movie. It's weird to watch it now with a critical eye, because I've seen it a bunch of times. I saw it opening night in a theater. But to see it now, and to okay, I'm going to slow down and really study this movie. The Rocketeer takes place over 2 days. The whole movie is 2 days in the life of Cliff Secord. He gets up, he takes the GB out for a flight. It wrecks because of the stolen jetpack. He finds a jetpack, he flies it in the circus later that day, and then the next night they're at the Griffith Observatory battling Nazis. That's a really quick turnaround, and why Cliff never looks 100% flying the jetpack, because he's only had it for a day. I don't think that ever occurred to me before. It's always interesting to say, like, how long does the movie take place? Because, you know, Star Wars, there's always been a debate, like, how long is it from the time they attack the rebel blockade runner to Luke battles the Death Star? How long is that? It's like a week, right? A few days here, a few days there, space travel, this and that, right? I watch a Rocketeer. I'm still under the belief that the Rocketeer is the single greatest movie helmet of all time. It is gorgeous to look at. It's functional. It seems functional with the rudder on the top. It's explained in the movie. If he turns his head, that's how he moves about. I'm even counting Boba Fett in that, and Boba Fett is like the closest number 2 you can be. You know, the Rocketeer, Boba Fett, Darth Vader. You know, I'd put the Stormtrooper way up there too. Star Wars helmets just have such a look. I love Russell Crowe's helmet in Gladiator. I've always tried to buy that one. I've seen a bunch of replicas, but I've never seen it at a price I was comfortable with. I love helmets. I do. I own the Rocketeer helmet. I own a Darth Vader helmet. I own a Stormtrooper helmet. So I do love my helmets. I had a X-Wing fighter pilot helmet for a while, but I think I need to get one of those. Gotta get one. Anyways, let's talk about Star Wars. You know, you can never not talk about Star Wars. And one of the weird aspects of collecting Star Wars when I was a kid was the Kenner toys were the top. If there was any holiday, an Easter basket, a birthday present, a Christmas present, you did something great in school, what do you want? I want Kenner Star Wars figures. I want play sets, vehicles, Star Wars. And most notably, 3 3/4. You know, I liked the role play stuff a little bit. I had a couple of the guns and a lightsaber. I did not like the micro collection growing up. I thought they were lame. Now I think they're great because since I don't actively play with toys, it's great to see them on a shelf in what looks like an action sequence. The Micro Collection Millennium Falcon is arguably the best toy Kenner ever made for the Star Wars line. And that's because it's not the Falcon from the movie. It is a shrunk down version of the toy Falcon with more features. And there's something about that. I have one of those. I got it not that long ago at a swap meet. The guy didn't know what it was. He charged me $10 because he thought I was gonna balk at the price, and I was like, I will give you $10 for this Kenner Micro Falcon. It's totally stripped, but I'm okay with that because it's a really rare toy and very expensive when it's all put together. But with Kenner toys being the top of the heap, there were times when you weren't going to get to a store that had Kenner toys because you had to go to Kmart or Best Products to get, or Service Merchandise. Sometimes you were at another store like Save on Drugs, or we had a place in the Norwalk Square called the Sears Outlet, which sold Sears stuff that they couldn't get rid of. That's where I got a lot of my micro collection items back in the day. And one of the items that you'd have at these off stores, even the grocery store sometimes, Star Wars model kits. And I sat down and said, how many Star Wars model kits did I build? And I made a list, 2 sides. I actually was shocked when I started writing them down and looking like, oh, I built that one, I built that one, I built that one. I had no idea how many Star Wars model kits I had actually built over the years. I loved Star Wars growing up, and building a model kit was kind of like playing with a toy. It was a toy you had to assemble yourself, obviously. In the beginning, I would build them just like the instructions said. How does it say to build them? This is what I'm going to build. And then later, when I became a teenager, Star Wars has ended in '83. I was building model kits up until '88, '89, even '90, when I even started building vinyl kits, Horizon and Billiken vinyl kits, Screamin' products. But the core were these, and those vinyl kits were quite expensive, but the core were these inexpensive model kits. And the first model kits I can remember building, I wrote them down, but I didn't write them in order. The first ones I can remember building were these big model kits, and I'm like big, and they were landscapes. They made 2 of them. They made Hoth Rebel Base and Hoth Battle Base, and the Rebel Base was about yay big, and it came with the Falcon, a bunch of snow speeders, a bunch of X-Wings, a Rebel transport, and little tiny figures on Tauntauns and Rebel soldiers. And I remember getting that one and being excited because it was a lot of spaceships. A lot of spaceships in a box. And that's great, because you can never have too many spaceships. The other one, the Hoth Battle, was the outside, so it had all the turrets, and it had snow speeders and Tauntauns, but it also had the AT-AT walkers. So you could build these little tiny AT-AT walkers, and they were just cool to have. They were so out of scale with any other toy, but they allowed you to amass this big, almost like they have these now, but they didn't have them when I was a kid. Almost like the generic Army Man version of Star Wars toys. Like, I have a bunch of soldiers, I have a bunch of ships, and what we like to do with those, I had a friend who had, his dad golfed, and he had one of those putt returners where you putt the ball and it goes, and then it knocks it back to you, so you don't have to go get it. And we used to set up all the people on the floor and then get the golf ball returner, get a golf ball, and then load it in and have it shoot out and see how many we could knock down. We did that for hours and probably destroyed a lot of the figures in the process, but it was so much fun to see Star Wars at that scale, because I was a lucky kid. I had 5 or 6 stormtroopers. I had multiples of each figure, but I didn't have enough to make an army that big, and certainly not with the vehicles, because I was lucky to get 1 of each vehicle, if that. There were some vehicles that were just too hard to get, or they're expensive. Like, I didn't get a Rebel transport till really late in the game, and not that that matters, because don't tell Austin, but the Rebel transport's a terrible vehicle. He loved it as a kid. I always thought it was a complete waste. They should have made the blockade runner and not the transport. But these big model kits were fun. There was another kit that was bigger scale. It was about this big, about the size of a cookie jar, and it was Yoda's house. And you could take the lid off, and there was a Luke Skywalker figure sitting eating stew, and then a Yoda, and then outside there was an Artoo on his tiptoes looking in the window. I really like this kit, but I never was at a point where I had enough paint to make the kit look good. It always looked brown, all in brown. So it was never really that great. As far if I got it now, it would be fun to paint and make it look good if I had that kind of free time anymore. But back then, you glued it together and you got high off of the tube of glue, and you put it on a shelf, and it stood there for a few weeks until you're like, look, what am I going to do with this? So there were some other kits that were amazing. The most ridiculous one, and I put them at the top of my list because this is what triggered it, because I was trying to explain to Austin what's the lamest Star Wars product from back in the day, and there were some lame ones. There were model kits of vans with Star Wars art on the side. So basically it was some guy's sex van, but instead of a wizard on the side, it was a space wizard. It was Luke. They made SSPs, you know, the kind where you put the stick in, pull it out, and then it races across the floor. But these were just model kits of vans. I think it might have even been the same van that came with Charlie's Angels stickers on them. This one just had Star Wars stickers, and one of them had like an R2 dome you could stick on top of the van like a skylight. Very, very lame. The other ones were my favorite because they were so lame, and I thought, you know, I should look these up now to see if they're worth anything, and they're not valuable, but they're more than I wanted to pay. I used to get these model kits at the Sears Outlet in Norwalk Square. They were 19 cents each. Now, 19 cents. So if my mother gave me $1, I could buy 4 of them and include tax if I had $1. And since my mom worked in the square, right across from the outlet, I would walk there after school, get a couple of bucks, head over to the Sears Outlet and buy. They had not micro machines, Star Wars micro figures. They had the Wampa Cave set and a couple of others. The Bespin gantry, not the gantry, the control room with the breakaway window. But I would go get these, and they were called Star Wars Mira kits. They were 19 cents each, and they were still a ripoff. It's a model kit that came with what almost looked like a rearview mirror on a Volkswagen. A plastic disc with a mirrored sticker on it, and get this, half of a model kit. So they had the speeder bike, but you imagine it cut down the middle, so you get half the model kit. And the idea was that you would take it off of its tree, push it onto the mirror, and now you have, looking in the mirror, a full model kit. They made the X-Wing, the shuttle, the speeder bike, I think even the Scout Walker. And this is the 80s kit equivalent of the Little Orphan Annie decoder ring. Because on the box it looks like a full model kit. But you get it open, you're like, oh, this is only half a kit. It's a Mira kit. MPC, the company that made them, they should have been ashamed of themselves. I can't believe anybody greenlit this idea. Imagine what the unit cost to make that. It must have been half a cent, and most of that in the packaging, because the model kit was nearly non-existent. Unbelievable Mira kits. The other earliest kits were, they made a kit of C-3PO and a kit of R2-D2. Not quite as big as a large size action figure, but close. The 3PO was cast in matte plastic, not chrome, so he was never really that interesting to build. It was a fun kit, and you could get him to stand. It was okay. The R2 was better because the dome was chromed, and I remember late in the game getting an R2 kit and not being afraid to open it and build it and do stuff with it. And what I did to that R2, my friends and I was in this real nerdy group of friends who we loved all things science fiction, horror. We went to all the conventions together. And part of that was we had a rivalry to see who could build the coolest model kit. I know, relax, it's hard to believe. We didn't get girls doing that. I mean, it's crazy, right? But I figured I'm going to take this R2 kit and make it something special. So I took, you could go over to Radio Shack at this point and buy components. And I remember buying individual LED lights and individual motors with all of the wiring and the contact for the 9-volt battery on the side. So I had wired the R2 to light up. His main light, eye light lit up. He had some LEDs on parts that made sense. I put the motor so that when you connected it, the head would spin around. And I even took the kit and I carved open some of the doors on the front of R2, glued them that they were open, and even made some of the gizmos that would come out. They had a kit later on of R2 that would do that. But I remember distinctly getting one that didn't have all of them. So I was like, I'm going to make extras. This will really impress the guys. Now, I never came out on top because I was friends with a guy named Eric who was a bona fide artistic genius. And everything he touched turned to gold. He was much better at it than I was. And so when I got a Shuttle Titarium for Christmas, Eric offered to build it for me. So I gladly was like, sure, Eric's going to make it. He's going to make it look like it came out of the movie. So Eric took the model kit for about 2 weeks. And when I got it back, it was not what I was expecting. He had made it look like it had been through a war. Now, he didn't destroy it. It was all superficial stuff. My initial reaction was, you ruined my model kit. But after, hindsight, he made it look like it had come out of the movie. It looked pretty amazing. And when I asked him how he did it, because it wasn't paint, I said, Eric, how did you do that? He explained to me that he called the blackening of the model kit, because the Shuttle Titarium is all pristine white, but he made it look like it had gone through atmosphere. He called it atmospheric burns. And his trade secret was this. When you finish building the kit, you take the trees that the pieces were stuck to, you break them up, you hold it up like a tiki torch, and you light it on fire. And when it starts to burn, better do this outside, kids, it emits black, tangible smoke. So he would hold the model kit over the burning stick to catch the black soot. And then when that was burned down, he'd take the black soot and he'd wipe it in with a rag into the crevices. This made it look amazing. And I used that technique on a bunch of my kits because I was like, I'm going to do what Eric does. But again, I wasn't as good as Eric. And of course, I ended up burning myself to the point of almost going to the hospital. I remember holding the burning tree and the model kit and looking at it and like thinking about where was I going to go next. And that's when it dropped glop onto my finger. Molten plastic. It burned all the way through. It might have been a 3rd degree burn, but I remember I'm going to die. And I don't even remember what kit that was. And the lesson learned was, I'm not as good as Eric is at building models, so I will stick to writing plays and stories, and I will let this amazing genius take over that end of it. So that was the other thing. I wasn't that good. Okay, another kit that was good was they took a lot of risks in the beginning. Kenner took all these risks. Not Kenner, but like other companies who had the license. They made 2 different Darth Vader kits. The first one was a standing Darth Vader with a glow-in-the-dark lightsaber. Not a bad representation. If you had the 12-inch figure like I did, it seems superfluous, though. I'm like, it's not going to be as good as the figure that I have. It's not going to be playable as the figure. Now, the other one I prized for years, and it took a long time to get it because it was expensive when it came out, and it stayed expensive as a collectible, and it's still expensive. And that was Darth Vader's torso. So from the chest up, it was Darth Vader. It was an electronic kit, so it was much more expensive. It featured, now imagine building this. The whole kit's black plastic. You only need a little bit of paint for the control chest, maybe the nose, the tips of the mouth. That's all you need. That's it. Everything in the kit is in the electronics. So this one had light up eyes, and it had, are you ready for this? Now this is 1978. It had a breathing feature. It mimicked Darth Vader's breathing. You can see my Darth Vader helmet right there. One of a few I have. It mimicked breathing. Now, How did they do this? It didn't have a speaker. There were no chips that could emulate the breathing noise. I was always fascinated, how did this work? And when I got the kit and built it finally, what an enormous letdown. It was like watching those Magic's Greatest Secrets Revealed shows where they tell you, look, it's never going to be as amazing as you think it's going to be. And when they finally tell you how they do it, you're going to go, I was fooled by that. The Darth Vader model kit's breathing apparatus was a wire brush, and it was positioned in the throat of the figure. And when you tilted his head back and forth, it rubbed against another piece of plastic, so it went. That's the whole feature. That's the whole feature. What a letdown. What a freaking letdown. Okay, so here are some other kits that I built. I built the X-Wing with a little tiny Luke Skywalker pilot. I built the Darth Vader TIE Fighter, and it featured Darth Vader, like a molded Darth Vader sitting in the cockpit, which one of the cooler elements. Vader full body, Dagobah, Hoth base. They had a line of models called Structors. This must have been the same idiot team that made the Mira kits. The Structors were wind-up kits. And that sounds great, right? They made the AT-AT, the Scout Walker AT-ST, and C-3PO as wind-up kits. So you built them, and then you could wind them up, and they would walk across the table. That's pretty cool, right? Except they never went anywhere. These were so lame. The only good part about them was the scale of the AT-AT. The AT-AT scale was unlike any of the other toys, so you could, if they were cheap enough, and this one showed up at the Sears Outlet as well, you could build a few of them and have a bunch of AT-ATs, but they didn't go anywhere. I remember distinctly, and I might even have one still, you wind up the thing, and then the legs would go, but it didn't go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. The Scout Walker would try to walk, and then it would just fall over. The Scout Walker looked really lame. And then the worst was poor C-3PO. Because he has regular human-sized feet, they put on these big black support struts, you know, like snowshoes almost, to make him walk. So he would kind of get going and then just move in place, back and forth. It was like, it was an analogy of life, man. All wound up and nowhere to go. Whatever. Late in the game, they came out with 2 more of those big diorama sets. They came out with the Cantina and Jabba's Throne Room. These were, again, great kits. And they featured a lot of characters that never made it into action figure form, at least back when I was a kid. So if you bought these, you could get all these amazing characters that were not action figures. Hermie Odell, Pote Snitkin. There were a lot of these obscure characters that wouldn't be made into figures for years and years later. And they were big, too. And I remember getting the Cantina and Jabba's Palace and painting them both. Not very well, but they were close enough to Dungeons and Dragons figures. The Tauntauns for the other set were much smaller because the vehicles. But these were a little bigger. These were almost like... They were basically the size of D&D figures. So I can remember sitting and painting them and trying to make them look as best I could. And to get Jabba's Palace with all the alcoves and the spit behind him that turned food, just really, really cool. And I like those kits. Now, the coolest kit I built, my favorite, I've saved it for last, was the Return of the Jedi speeder bike. This was one of the first items I got from the movie. The toys were hard to get, but I was able to get a speeder bike model kit. And you could build this fairly easy. It was not real complicated. The figure was the hardest part, but you could build the bike in one sitting, and it would glue and it would stay together. You know, how many Star Trek Enterprise kits that I built that the weight of the saucer and the neck, it always just collapsed. Waste of time. I stopped buying Enterprise kits because of that. But the speeder bike was fun to build, easy to build, it stayed together. I used a technique of the silver brushing to make it look like it had been through actual combat. And that one, I had multiple kits. So I was able to build one that looked amazing. To me, 12-year-old me looked amazing. 14-year-old me, amazing. And then I had a few others I was able to modify. So I had one with the rider on the bike, and then I decided, how can I improve this? Again, remember that competition. So on the back of the speeder bike, there is his bedroll. It's molded plastic. So I took that off and replaced it with actual cloth with its own little holder. So I mean, that looked pretty cool. And then the big thing was, this was my friend Eric's idea. He said to me, take the figure off the bike and cut him and see if you can make him stand instead of sit. Now he's molded sitting with his arms out, so it's not easy. But I took an X-Acto blade and a couple of weeks, and I cut him completely into pieces. And then I strung it back together using paper towels. I would stick paper towels in all the empty spots and paint them black, so it looked like leather with the armor on top. And by the end, I had a fairly decent biker scout that stood next to the bike. Out of all the model kits I had built over the years, that's the one I was most proud of, because it looked pretty professional. And I had gone to a lot of conventions and seen professional model builders. I'd seen movie models. And this one was like, I can put this, for my 14-year-old self, I can put it on par with them. And I felt really proud of that. I wish I'd kept it, but over the years, I got to where I would build model kits and I would sell them. I had quite a business going at the video store of those Screamin' kits. I built Jason from Friday the 13th, sold him almost immediately. I built Elvira, Pinhead, a bunch of monster kits. I would buy them at the conventions, paint them, and then sell them for about quadruple what I paid for them. And that felt really good. I have some pictures somewhere of even some of those kits before I sold them off. So, model building. I mean, it's fun, right? There's so little thing in life that's fun anymore. Everything is so stressful. I mean, you get older, you forget all this stuff. But then you see a model kit, you're like, I want to build a model kit. Like a couple of years back, for the art show at Knott's, I built a model replica of the first year of Trapped. Now, that took all summer. That was not an easy build. And it was all scratch built, because there's no kit for it, obviously. So that might have been the last big model kit that I built. I did build a little diorama of the best of the worst set from Red Letter Media with little dolls of all the guys. I just think that, and it lights up and everything. But there's something very calming. You put some music on, you enter this miniature world, and you build something that never existed before. Even if it's just a kid, it's still just a kid until you make it into something. And a good chunk of my childhood was spent building these model kits. This is long before the internet. I didn't have a VCR in my bedroom till late in the game. So you could put music on. I used to go out in the garage. I lived in the garage for a while when I lived in Norwalk. And, Sunday night I would put on a KEZY out of Anaheim. And I would listen to music, listen to the top 40 countdown, and just build model kits, knowing that, Monday morning I'll be back at school. But for one brief moment, all that exists in the world is this creative process. And there was a case in my garage where I had all my model kits for a while. I built kit after kit after kit, and then a lot of scratch-built kits. I got to the point where I really enjoyed kit bashing, where I would take a car and parts of spaceships and put them together and make a spaceship car. And that was a lot. I wish I had pictures of all that, but of course, I existed before pictures were easy. If my mother caught me taking photos of toys and she had to have those developed at the photomat, she would have killed me. So I didn't do a lot of that. I did occasionally convince her to buy me instant film for the Polaroid, and I would take pictures of my Star Wars figures, thinking they were gonna look like a scene out of the movie. They just looked like toys in the backyard. But to me, they were pictures from a movie. I'm sorry these aren't as often as they used to be, but it's been a crazy year. As I wind down 91 Reasons, and yeah, I think I'm winding it down. I think I'm going to reach a point where I've said all I need to say in this forum. It seems like everybody has a podcast now, and that's great. But do I need to do a podcast anymore? Maybe these are just videos I put on my YouTube channel. I have to think about that. I have to think about the future of 91 Reasons and whether I'm about to hit episode 500, and I think at that point it may be a situation where there's just simply nothing left to say, and we just retread old ground. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want people to go, Jeff, we already had that episode. So let me think about it. Let me decide if I want to keep doing 91 Reasons. We are in year 7. I've been doing 91 Reasons for 7 years and almost 500 episodes. I'm incredibly proud of that accomplishment. Incredibly proud. I'm amazed at the people I've met, the things I've done because of this podcast. But there comes a point where it does have to fold up shop. I don't know when that is. It's not today, it's not tomorrow, but it is coming. So we will be here, my friends, me and you, for the end of 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?